Greetings, I'm Karen Colligan, and welcome to the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. So why do I care about leadership? As the founder of PeopleThink, and in my tenure as a leader, as a consultant, and as a coach, I've certainly seen my share of very good leaders and my share of very bad leaders. And I thought it'd be great to share the wisdom from the very good leaders. Hence, the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. You're going to hear from a variety of leaders who are in a variety of roles, sharing their leadership expertise by answering the same 6 questions. Every single leader is unique in their style and approach, and we want to capture that uniqueness and provide you, the listener, with a diverse way of looking at leadership. So let's get moving and talk to our next leadership guest. In this episode, I am thrilled to be speaking to Danielle Hughes, who is the Chief Personality Officer of More Than Words Marketing. We're going to hear all about Danielle's approach to leadership. So Danielle, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Karen. Thrilled to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to our conversation, that's for sure. So before we even get into our leadership conversation, why don't you give me a snapshot of who you are and a little bit more about More Than Words Marketing?
Absolutely. So who I am is a loaded question.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But I'll start with the More Than Words piece, and then maybe we can get more into the other piece.
Okay.
But as you said, I'm the Chief Personality Officer of More Than Words Marketing. And so what does that mean? Essentially, it means that I help people put more personality into their professional messaging so that they can feel more comfortable and confident showing up as themselves in the workplace. And the goal is to help you attract the right audience while repelling the wrong one. So my background is as a copywriter, and I've been in marketing and content creation my whole career. And this kind of is just a natural outcropping of my own expansion over time and stepping into who I am and realizing how much better it is when you can be yourself in professional spaces, and how you just show up with much more like confidence and clarity than when you're trying to fit into some box or pretend to be something that you're not.
Yeah. Danielle, when you think about what we're going to talk about around leadership, the whole reason I created Let's Talk Leadership is because there is such a variety of people and how they view leadership, but much more importantly, it's the uniqueness of every single person. And when you can honor that uniqueness, oh my goodness. Oh, the stars are aligned and many good things can happen instead of trying to emulate someone else. So you and I are on the same page. We might do it a little bit different, but it's all about determining who am I and how am I going to show up in the world.
100%. Exactly. Exactly. And it takes a long time. It's most of us don't come out of the womb ready and fully cooked and embracing all that we are. It's definitely a lifelong pursuit.
Yes. I call it lifelong learning, Danielle.
Lifelong learning. There you go.
There you go. All righty, good. So we're going to have a glorious conversation. So let's start. First things first. There's so many ways to define leadership, and it's really personal to each person, which is what we just talked about. I want it to be, you want it to be. We have to be able to find that uniqueness. So how do you define leadership, Danielle?
It's interesting because I think it's changed so much for me over time, and probably for a lot of people. I think, there's the image that pops up in your head of the stereotypical person in the boardroom who's kind of like leading a meeting. And then I really think about how leadership for me has evolved into almost like people who are very capable and can execute. I think there is nothing better than people who can get things done. And I've just always been such a doer. I'm take charge. I'm independent. And, I think maybe it can, it seems like a a dichotomy because most people think of a leader as maybe like the idea person, and then they kind of like have the people go out and do their bidding. But I really think you can lead by doing yourself
Yeah.
and inspiring people to kind of be motivated themselves. And I've seen this in myself in my own business, and the way that I get a lot of responses in my messaging and on social media, that I've motivated somebody to go do something because of something that they've read, or that I've made them think a different way. And I think that all of that can be just a different style of leadership, is like getting people to think, maybe get out of their own way and do the thing.
Yeah. And Danielle, it's get people to think differently than they would have had they not, done X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
And make sure. So yeah, that whole boardroom image, obviously, I pictured it. As soon as you said it, I saw it. I saw
Yep.
the boardroom. I saw who was in the boardroom, and I wasn't in it. Then, it's a whole different
Yep.
ballgame now. And so,
Yeah.
when you think about leadership and you think about how different it is, I mean, I have my own firm, you have your own firm, and so we're going to lead differently, and we're going to be a different person in that boardroom, and
Yes.
so have to lead it in different ways. And the fact that you talk about how to inspire so that they can be motivated themselves, because you can
Mm.
only, what's that saying, you bring a horse
Lead
to
a horse to water. Yeah.
saying is, yeah. So yeah, I love that. That's perfect. Great. All right, so let's look at number 2. So for me, when I think about leaders and values, I think that you can't have one without the other. And
Agreed.
so everybody that I talk to, in terms of, I said, okay, give me 3 of your top values, because that's really our North Star. So it's the way, Danielle, that we can make the easy decisions. And much more importantly, it's the ones when we really have to make the tough decisions that we can
Mm.
at night, because we know we're basing it on our value system. So I'll ask you the same question. Give me your top 3.
Okay, not necessarily in this order, like I haven't ranked them, but for me, I would say honesty is one of my top values. If you ask anybody who knows me, they will tell you that when they want the real truth, they will ask me, because I will tell them unbiased and unabashedly without sugarcoating it.
Whether they want to hear it or not,
No, but
right?
that's the point. They know when they really want it, they can ask,
Yeah.
right? I'm not going to be, rude or anything like that.
Yeah.
But if you just want somebody to tell you you look great, don't really ask me for my actual opinion. But I also think, from a business perspective, this is what clients also want. Like, they don't need you to tell them everything's great, that they're not coming to you for that. They're coming to you to solve their problems. So by being honest, I can honestly say, this is what the problems are with your website or with your messaging or why it's not working. And, it's all in the delivery, of course. But I think I've just always been a truth teller my whole life in general. So you're right, for better or for worse. It's gotten more better. It probably was worse younger because I didn't know how to modulate.
You're in the delivery, but still respectful.
Exactly. As my mother always says, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Right.
Exactly.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so that's one. Two is loyalty. I am very fiercely loyal to the people that are important to me. I'm a super connector. I think about people. I am that person who will always reach out to check in, make plans. And I'm loyal to people that do good work,
Mm,
in terms of like collaborators and partners in business and clients. I will bend over backwards for the right clients out of loyalty if they treat me well as well.
yeah.
And I just think it's an undervalued value for
Yeah.
a lot of people. And
Great.
then the last piece is authenticity, of course, like just, you know, being myself, encouraging people to be themselves, showing up. I had a call the other day with someone, and he said that I was the poster child for authenticity because I am so unabashedly me all the time. And he said, you give people permission to do the same because they know that, what you see is what you get with you. And I thought that was really great. But I also said to him, I said, this has not always been the way. I
Yeah.
like this is also something that's evolved over time with confidence, with finding trusted people around me, feeling supported, feeling seen. At some point you start, not giving an F, and that also helps. But I think it really is just the weight off your shoulders when you can do that.
Yeah, no question about it. I created the Keep It Real Leadership Program, and our mantra is be the leader only you can be. And
Hmm.
very, very similar. I mean, it takes time and it takes heart and guts to be able to own who you are. And some people want to, and some people, it's more complicated and harder for them to do that.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful when that happens and when you can hear something like that, Danielle, and know, okay, I've made the right decision by being the chief personality officer and starting my company and doing what I know is right. Well,
Yeah.
like you said, you'll attract who you want to attract, and you're going to repel who you're going to repel. Life in the big cities, the way I look at that. So I love that. Yes.
Exactly. And it's, for most people, that authenticity piece is just wrapped in fear,
Yes.
right? It is the fear of what if they don't like me, and all, what if I show who I really am and it's not something that's positively responded to. And, of course, 99.9% of the time it's the complete opposite. But we have the inner monologue that's telling us you can't do that. They're not going to like you. And it's about getting past that. And exactly like you just said, when you do, you will find more people that respond to who you are. And the people that don't just won't even bother.
Right.
And it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yes, absolutely. All righty. So, what's the best advice you were ever given by a leader?
Not trying to emulate other people, but to figure out who you are as a leader. And I think that's, so many people are trying to model something because that's what they think leadership is. And I think the best advice that I've ever been given by people that I have seen is you have to figure out what that looks like for you,
Mhm.
and how that, and it's, and again, it's all these things that take time, but it's trying to block out that image and recreate this for yourself and think about what's important to you and what do you want to be known for.
That's nice. And again, as we said earlier, that's sometimes complicated because of all the other things that get in the way. So, no question about that.
I mean,
Okay.
everything is complicated, Karen, right? That's, it's never easy, but it maybe can be simple. How about that?
I like it. I like it. Good. All righty. So number four, we're currently going through an enormous amount of transition and change in this world. We've got layoffs, we've got world events. I mean, economic implications of both. I mean, I could go on
Yes.
and on. I will stop there, however. So when you think about that, how do you lead through transition and change? How do you acknowledge it and keep going?
I mean, I think a lot of this does come down to the fact that you have to keep going,
Yeah.
but I think it's a both and, right? It is like, to your point, awareness of what's happening. I'm not a very reactive person. So I think, even all last year, it was all these rumblings of the economy and what's going to happen. And I had a lot of people in my world who were nervous or like afraid they were going to lose clients. And I'm just not the kind of person that worries about it until I need to worry about it. And right. And I don't mean like head in the sand, like it's all going to be fine. But I think if you just keep doing what you're doing while paying attention to what's still working, what's not working, right? We have to constantly be modulating and assessing what we're putting out there, what the response is, what people are saying. But I think a lot of times what holds people back or gets in our way is too much concern for things that haven't manifested and may never manifest, and not enough planning to move forward, and like maybe then considering like the what if, right? So have the plan about what happens if things take a slight downturn. What does that look like for my business? One of the best pieces of advice that I ever got from a former coach, which really is the impetus for my business, is to listen to the market.
Mm,
So
yeah.
when things are bubbling up, what are people really clamoring for? And how do you shift to accommodate that? And I think so many people are just like, well, this is what I've been doing, so I'm going to keep doing it. But there may be an opportunity that's right next door, and you might be missing it because you're not paying attention. So, how do you sort of keep your mind open to other opportunities while forging forward and ensuring that you're just still moving?
Right. And there's certain things, Danielle, that we really have no control over. And so by worrying about those things we have no control over, then that is that whole anxiety producing thing. It, produces stress. We don't sleep.
Yes,
Mean, it just becomes this vicious circle around that. And so to be able to, what you said is, have almost a what if plan so that you are acknowledging it. You don't spend a ton of time on that plan, but just know that you're able to move forward in a different way if that's what the market generates. So,
exactly.
yeah, that sounds great. Okay, great.
Yeah, I
So,
think it's opening yourself up too, right? Opening yourself up to other things. And that's also when the magic happens, is like being open to what else might come your way and how could it potentially benefit you.
yeah. Well, you said about not having your head in the sand. So if we listen and truly listen, then we
Mhm.
can start to see what are those things that are becoming apparent that maybe somebody else isn't paying attention to because they do have their head in the sand. So
Exactly,
listen,
exactly. Or
listen.
yes, or they're stuck in their ways or any number of other things, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, good. So number 5, we know the best leaders are curious and always learning.
Mm.
So what do you do? What are some tools? What are some resources to keep you growing?
I am so curious. And it's very funny because I think my whole life I just thought I was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And right. And I got introduced to Gretchen Rubin several years ago. She's an author. She's written a book called The Four Tendencies, and she basically says there's like four types of people in the world. And one of those people is what's called a questioner.
Ah,
And a questioner is somebody who will do things and go along with things, but needs to understand why first. And I mean, I have never felt more seen in my whole life, Karen. Like that book and that, like, there's a quiz you can take. It's called The Four Tendencies. I recommend everybody do it. It was just justification for who I am and an understanding for who I am. And I just am that person. I'm so curious. I'm always asking questions. I read every night. I listen to podcasts nonstop. I just consume anything. Like now when I travel, like I want to do tours to learn about the history of things. I do, like most people, I go down a rabbit hole. I do a deep dive. Like I like to learn. And I think I've always liked to learn. But I think when I was younger, I kind of kept it inside that like it was really important for me to be smart and I wanted to learn. But now I'm like, I love to learn and I don't care if you call me a nerd. I don't care. I want all the museums, all the things,
yeah,
all of
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. And, the curiosity thing is, yes, rabbit holes, absolutely. But then you come out sometimes, you're like, well, I have no idea how I got there, but whoa, I didn't know about A, B, C, or I'm going to go see, A, B, C,
Yeah.
when that darn whole space can be dark down there. But,
Yes.
when you come out, there's so much light, so much light.
Yes. And I
So,
think one more thing, just important to like surround yourself with different types of communities and different types of thinkers and people, So it's like I was in a creative networking group for so long and it was great. And then I realized at some point, like I'm only getting that creative perspective. And so then I joined like a more business fractional group and it was like a completely different way of thinking. And then I'm in this like futuristic AI group and having people who have different interests, it just opens you up to like ways of thinking and topics that you may never have considered before.
yeah. And I think, Danielle, it goes back to what we were just talking about in terms of listening. We have to be open, you use that word, and we have to listen, and we may not agree with it. However, there are going to be other points of view. Say it isn't so. And when that happens and you can take it in, well, then maybe you can formulate a different way of looking at the world. And that's just the best thing for everybody. No question.
Yes, 100%. I'm definitely growth mindset, not fixed mindset for sure. I think it's just so important to recognize our own biases and challenges and think about, why do I think that way? And is this correct? And what do I need to do to decide if that really is the way I feel, or if I've been told something?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the last question is,
Drum
what
roll.
piece of art or music or literature or whatever else keeps you balanced and brings you joy? And for me, when I think of leadership, Danielle, I mean, I always think about the whole person, and
Mm,
someone who's just at work or leading a firm or doing this project. It's really about, what are you bringing to the table that really brings you joy? And, I don't want to work with people who aren't filled with joy. I mean, I don't want to have a party every day, but I don't care if they're clients, I don't care if they're friends, colleagues. It's like, you have to come prepared to have some kindness and joy in your life. So what do you do to fill that baby up?
100%. I love that. And actually, like when I work with clients, the number one thing that I always insist on is they have to give me something they love to do for fun, that we
Yes.
put in their LinkedIn profile, that we put in their bio, because nobody works all the time and we all have outside interests. And I get there, I make them tell me. And for me, I mean, it's almost too many things. I mean, I go out a lot with friends. I love to go out for dinner. I have a museum group. We call ourselves the Art Nerds, and we go to museums and we see art probably like once or twice a month. I love the symphony. I travel. I'm a big wine person, so I collect wine. I learn about wine. I drink wine. Like I said, voracious reader. And my happy place is my CrossFit gym. I've been doing CrossFit for almost 11 years, and there is nothing more rewarding for me than throwing around a barbell.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, well, then you get to enjoy going out to dinner. You get to enjoy your wine. You get to not have to think about all those things because you're taking care of your body. Yeah,
Yes. And it's my time. I turn off my phone. It's 1 hour, 5 days a week, no interruptions. And like, that's almost like my meditation
yeah,
for myself. And
yeah.
it does just make me a more open-minded, better, happier thinker.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, as we just talked about, it's about the whole self, because you can't show up and be like, this is who I am at work, this is who I am at home, and we're not going to cross-pollinate any of that. It's impossible.
Right.
It's just impossible.
Correct. I
Yeah.
think we used to do that so much more. Now with hybrid and virtual, you can't.
Yes.
And it's also important to really have boundaries around that, right? The reason that I can do these things is because I log off at a certain time and I'm unavailable and I block my calendar, and I'm really try to adhere to those boundaries for myself, for my clients, for my sanity, for my
Yes.
life. Yeah.
Yeah. Agree completely. All righty. Well, wow. Danielle, this was very fun. Um,
You.
yeah, a lot of similarities. The way, again, the way we're in similar businesses and completely different businesses. And at the
Yes.
end of the day, who are you at a core? So love the conversation. Love hearing what you do for a living. Love how you're pulling that out of those people. Yeah,
Thank
who are
you.
you do for fun? Let's see that personality. I mean, it's
Ex-
beautiful. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, really appreciate your thought leadership around this. And it's always inspiring to talk to people who, are leading the charge and have made some decisions to lead their life in a different way, which is exactly what you've done. So thank you for that.
I love that. Thank you. And I just want to say to people, it's not like this is by design. I
Yes.
think it's open to anybody if you can choose to get there. And this has just become something, a natural evolution that I never could have predicted or any of it. And I've just been really curious and open, and it's kind of led me down this path, and I love it.
And there's possibilities for all of us, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love that. Okay. So, listeners, I appreciate you listening to us today. And I'm Karen Colligan, and you've been listening to Danielle Hughes, who is the Chief Personality Officer of More Than Words Marketing. So if this leadership podcast was of interest to you, go to our YouTube channel at People Think SF and look at all the other distinguished leaders I've had the pleasure of interviewing. And of course, these podcasts are on all your local stations. You're going to learn so much about the uniqueness of leadership. I know I have. And so don't forget to share with your colleagues. Till the next episode of the Let's Talk Leadership podcast, have a good one. Don't forget to keep it real. Editing by Mary Lee Williams. Thanks all. Have a great day. Bye now.